Hey everybody, welcome back to the PC Perspective Podcast. We're on episode 689. This is being recorded on August 10, 2022. I'm Sebastian Peak.
I'm Jeremy Hellstrom.
I'm Josh Walrath.
I'm Brett Van Sproonberg.
And I'm Kent Burgess.
You can support us by going to patreon.com/PCPer. And we have some people to thank this month, such as Send Beer to Canada! Exclamation mark.
Seriously, look, we need it.
It's on the way.
I don't know how that works from a legal standpoint, but I guess you can just...
Shush.
Yeah. Also...
Just label it used computer parts value $1.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and
Well,
stuff is
leaking.
full of...
Or just say promotional items, no value.
Yes.
Right.
Something
That's
like
good
that. Gavin Lay and Ed McNeil bumped up their pledges, so I want to thank them as well. And all of our patrons. We appreciate you.
We really do. Really do. Couldn't do it without you. Thanks a lot.
It's true.
Let's move immediately to the Food with Josh segment, which I dearly hope is actually a burger this time. Josh?
Oh, pucker up.
Yeah, this one's called the Smoochie. I think I've had it before in the past. It's been a while, though. But here's the Smoochie. The name like Smoochie, it's gotta be good, right? Well, the Smoochie is comprised of 2 beef patties topped with chili, queso, green onion, and paprika, served with a side of golden brown fries, lightly seasoned. This is a burger so messy, it's a total fork and knife burger because you can't pick it up unless you want to eat the cardboard tray that it's sitting on. It's tasty. It's comforting. It's like kind of mac and cheese, but in burger form without so much pasta. And now, that's it. It all comes together nicely. And there you have it. And I won't be eating again until sometime tomorrow, per usual.
Mm-hmm. That's his story.
Thanks.
Yeah. I'm smooshed out.
Thanks for the sacrifice there, Josh.
Yeah.
What a way to go, though. You know? Gotta go.
You're right.
It's the destroyer of arteries.
Last week at this time, we went immediately into something like 15 to 20 minutes of financial talk. And we're going to do it again, but not immediately and not as much.
No.
Because we're gonna break things up a little bit. I want to start off with a interesting news item from the last couple of days, or possibly even today, as it turns out. This one comes from Tech Power Up. There's a WCCF Tech article and a couple of other sources. Basically, Ryzen 7000 processors are going to have a IF, that's Infinity Fabric, of 3000 megahertz. And which means the sweet spot that you're going to be looking for is DDR5 6000. So don't scoff at those DDR5 6000 kits. That's what you want. Like DDR4 3600 right now, the sweet spot's going to be DDR5 6000.
I mean, I was a little bit wondered about 7200. That's a lot to ask out of DDR5 without losing a lot of latency. So a little bit slower, that's kind of nice. 6000?
I think that that's a big jump going from 1800 megahertz IF to 3000.
Yeah?
I wonder if they're actually going to be able to do it. I hope so, because that would provide a lot of positive things. Latency goes down to main memory. Everything communicates faster. Keep your fingers crossed.
I know that with Ryzen 5000, certain chips and certain motherboards, people were occasionally able to get their IF to 2000 and run their RAM at 4. But it was one of those rare occasions. You had to hit the silicon lottery in a way. My wife's 5800X, I can run it at 1900 and 3800 memory, and that's it. That's as far as it will go with any stability.
I admit I was not originally a big believer in the very, very high-speed DDR5 6000. Just really...
Well, they're up to 6600 now, Brett. You'd better start believing.
Oh, yeah.
6600
I wasn't sure it was
CAS 32.
I wasn't sure there was going to be anything out there that was
Ron.
really taking it making it necessary. But this I'm convinced now. Well, it's because you led with if you're a disbeliever in, this.
On the subject of AMD, Raphael might have come out of its shell. That's a subtle pun there by Jeremy. at
Subtle?
PCPer.com.
Did Raphael paint Aphrodite's birth? I can't remember.
The turtles.
5.7 gigahertz is the rumor. You should expect Ryzen 9 7950X to be able to hit boost clocks of 5.7 on its 16 cores and 32 threads. No, it's not exciting that they're still at 16 cores, but it is exciting they're going to have a really fast Infinity Fabric and really high clocks and higher IPC to boot.
The base is usually a little bit higher than the previous generations, which is also kind of nice. But yeah, 170 watt TDP. What do you say?
I think
Are they
that
lying?
170 watt TDP is the key to those higher clocks. Because if you were stuck at 125 or 115, I don't think you'd be able to hit that. So the advancements in the process and the fact that they have a higher, like a bigger envelope, I think is going to be very good for performance. I'm very curious about cooling still. I want to see how well those new thick heat spreaders work.
Thick.
Probably
And they don't
really
have a 7800X, so that's kind of interesting as well.
well.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
initially.
Future products.
Yes.
Maybe that'll be the first V-Cache. 7800X.
That would be interesting.
It would be interesting. Josh, are you ready? Are you in fine voice?
This is the part right here. Here it comes.
This is the time when we talk about money.
Yeah. And for the person who wanted time travel, here you go. It is Q2 2023.
Yeah. So this is NVIDIA, of course, and they did a pre-announcement. So they're actually announcing their results for Q2 on August 24th. But they were so bad that they pre-announced guidance. Well, I don't know if it's necessarily guidance, but they pre-announced how bad things were going to be because they were expecting like 8.8 billion or something like that. No, less than that. 7.8 billion, I think. 8. Let's just say 8. And they came out and said that they took a $1.2 billion pre-charge on unsold GPUs. So their actual revenue is going to be around 6.7 billion, which is darn close to what AMD has announced already. And of course, the shortfall is primarily driven by weaker gaming revenue. But it's interesting that the gaming revenue went down pretty much the same time as the crypto crash. So, for the longest time, I thought, I'll just, kind of take their stuff with a grain of salt, that their crypto is not as big as they made it out to be. But then you see those factories of GPU mining, and no, I mean, it's like, I would say a third of all GPU production probably went direct to miners. Maybe I'm wrong, but it sure seems that way. Well, that's pretty high, especially what they were considering, what they were saying. I mean, they're like, "Oh, mining is a negligible part of our actual, sales, and gaming is the primary mover." And they wanted to downplay that, and I think they did a poor job. But it was, it's a lot of GPUs, and once that crashed and they started selling and nobody kept buying, suddenly within weeks, stuff was approaching MSRP from historic highs.
I was going to say I would be surprised if it was only a third, if the crypto market was only a third.
There are a lot of OEMs. There's a lot of people buying GPUs, and there are people who repurposed, part-time gaming GPUs into mining. I mean, it's those, truly hardcore mining probably were taken up, a third of the amount actually sold. And so, NVIDIA is announcing that they're helping their board partners with this overstock. And, I was discussing with General Kanye, guy on Twitter that chat with now and then, asked who were the biggest winners of the whole GPU thing for the past 2 years. And I had to sit down and think about it. It's like, they all were. NVIDIA probably increase the prices of their GPU and memory packs because they typically bundle those things together. It just makes a lot more sense to have, one big buyer of memory other than the board partners try to, source out themselves. So they sell these GPU memory packs, and they probably raised them up 10 to 15% over what's usual. And then the partners, again, raised the prices that they sold them to the retailers, and then the retailers, the new eggs in that, they are out there feeling, what people will actually pay for them. And people are paying a lot and willing to spend a lot on GPUs. And so every piece of that chain, they inflated their prices. They all made good money off of graphics. And now that time has come to an end. And while consumers are cheering, everybody is expecting a large overstock of 3000 series. AMD doesn't seem to be as hammered by this. But again, their percentage of the market was much smaller than NVIDIA's. And NVIDIA did take a big swing, and they missed on $1.2 billion worth of unsold GPU. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. Originally, I thought that we would see prices around now just kind of hover where they are and maybe start going back up over the next 30 days. But the way it sounds, I think that we're going to see GPU prices continue to erode. And not only that, they're pushing the 4000 series, at least from NVIDIA. I mean, we'll see a high end being offered September, October time, I think. I mean, I haven't gotten any official notification from them, but that seems to be kind of the plan. And then the smaller models, the lower priced, lower numbered, are going to be maybe December, probably January. So they're probably going to hope a lot of really good deals on the 3000 series can clear out a lot of stock for the holidays while they retain that performance lead with the top end 4000.
We were just talking about it a minute ago, but you end up with the neon fluff that we were talking about a few minutes ago with sites like justgpu.com, which is is a new egg front. Please don't buy anything from there. Where they're trying to push some of this overstock out with some crazy way of doing comparison and silliness to try and move some of this back stock. I do hope the prices stay low. Your 30 series card and your 6000 series card push out just as many pixels today as it did yesterday.
Yeah, and the 3080 12 gig, those are, I don't know why people aren't buying those up by the droves, because at $729, as I've seen some of the lower ones, excuse me.
Go to EVGA.
They're cheap as compared.
Yeah.
Go to EVGA. They've got some great prices right now. Yeah. They did, actually. I don't know if they do today, but they did.
There was one other interesting thing that came out of that.
Which that?
3.81 billion of their 6.7 was out of the data center. More than half NVIDIA's revenue was out of the data center.
That's their cash cow, baby.
From this time last year. That's big.
I mean, do you know what they're selling DG1s for?
And they're selling them too.
Yeah.
They're not going to mining.
There is an insatiable need for compute in this world right now. Yeah. And NVIDIA has got a lot at their fingertips and a pretty good package that you plug it in, attach power, networking, you're off and running.
And you're not buying one. You generally are not buying one.
Some companies will buy one.
Fair. But a lot of the time they're doing a bulk.
Yeah.
And so that does sort of bode well for us on the gaming side. If NVIDIA is like, we're making a crop load of money off the data center and the gaming is still important to us, but not anywhere near the major chunk of revenue it used to be, do we really need to fight for margins that hard on the gaming side as we used to? That could be good for us.
I sort of wonder about one other thing that we've not mentioned in the gaming revenue being lower. So most of the more popular games right now don't require much GPU. And a lot of people are very happy to use 2 or 3 generation old graphics cards to play those games. I enjoy a lot of certain types of games, a lot of first person, well, not first person, but third person RPG, that sort of thing, and mostly like AAA. And the last one of those I can remember that was sort of a big hit was Guardians of the Galaxy, and that was last year. I've not really seen that type of game come out this year and be a super big hit, other than maybe Elden Ring. But that's it. And used to, those kinds of games were the big money makers for game companies, but now they're really focusing on easy optimization and microtransactions. Instead of making a $60 game where they get their money once. And as a business decision, I can understand that, but I think it's hurting the story-based gaming market.
Well, also you have titles like Destiny 2, which, are still, it's a really pretty title still.
Yeah.
But it runs 300 frames per second on modern hardware and 4K. It's not requiring much.
3080 modern hardware, 3070 modern hardware.
No,
that's on a 3080.
Yeah.
3080. Okay.
Yeah.
Doom Eternal.
But yeah, like Elden Ring.
Yeah.
It's recommended as a 1070.
Yeah. Doom Eternal will crank out, 100 frames per second on a 10 series card, easy. A good 10 series card.
All right, moving on in the news list. Hackaday, the 2022 Hackaday Prize. Bring back obsolete tech with the Hack It Back.
Yeah. So they've got a bunch of different categories. The one they've announced the 10 finalists for is the Hack It Back category, where you're taking obsolete technology. Anyone offended by the Nokia 1680 being referred to as obsolete, well, I mean, it's not like you can get GSM anymore now, is it? But the idea is to take something that's no longer as useful as it could be or it used to be and make it at least as useful, if not more. So what these guys did is actually just take the indestructible frame of the 1680, which is, honestly one of the best enclosures you could put anything in, design a custom PCB, which will run modern versions of Linux, and offers LoRa radio, so you can take over Internet of Things, Wi-Fi, and Bluetooth, and as well as making wireless calls. Not necessarily cell, although they're looking at doing that. And it's going to be more secure than just about any other phone you can get on the market, especially the ones that are sold as being extra secure.
Stop with your Apple bashing.
Hey, that wasn't Apple bashing. Remember that ultra secure phone that ended up just being some cheap Android phone with riddled with
true.
problems.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I see that the Apple person has a guilty conscience and is feeling attacked immediately somehow.
Mm-hmm. Hey, at least Apple doesn't let you unlock it with anybody's finger.
Yeah.
That's
the other funny one was
that's true, at least.
Yeah. How about a simple universal modem, which is not only compliant with every modem protocol on the planet from the beginning until now, but is also able to allow you to read from old C64 tapes and vinyl records that were used for data. I think that is just amusing as all. Or there's a ViewMaster. All of these projects, in order to apply for the prize, you have to put the entire materials list, the steps you did, everything to make it. It's all open source. This is the entire point of it. So if you're interested in any of them, check it out, and you can make some of them yourself if you've got the skills and the inclination.
There was something else on the list. I think it's related.
Yeah, sort of making something yourself.
Okay, let's see. This is from our second cut. The 6-inch board turns a Raspberry Pi module into a DIY router.
Yep, for $55.
DIY router, waiting to put a Raspberry Pi for. You can find I guess Pis are in short supply, unfortunately.
Yes, they have.
Yes,
I haven't checked recently, but
they're still pretty rare.
I was questioning whether it was known whether this was OpenWRT or whether it was.
It comes with it pre-installed.
Ah, okay.
You buy that card, it comes with OpenWRT installed.
Oh,
But you can do whatever you feel like to it as well. So, and not only that, but the performance difference between it and a USB to Ethernet is apparently like miles apart. Because yes, you could take a Pi, do a USB to Ethernet, and oh look, it's a router now. But yeah, not quite the same.
so $55 or thereabouts.
Yeah, does not come with a Pi.
But it gets you a very capable pocket router. Interesting.
Yeah.
For those of you who like that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
What's on a normal Pi? It's a
it.
shield
I like
for
it.
the Pi.
I feel like you're getting really close to the territory of just getting a mini PC with 2 Ethernet ports on it.
I dare you to tell the difference blindfolded in a dark room.
Right, but at least you could probably buy them. I don't know. I haven't looked at mini PCs with dual Ethernet ports lately to see what pricing is like. You'd think some older generation thing with like Bay Trail would have something
But
cheap.
you're still a couple $100.
That's ridiculous.
That is.
Speaking of ridiculous, if you had looked into buying one of the Aorus Z690i Ultra motherboards and on Newegg and looked at the reviews, there were so many terrible reviews. I was looking for one of these myself a while back, and it turns out there was actually an actual issue with those where Gigabyte had to do a recall, or I guess they were giving people money back or replacing them. What was the deal, Jeremy?
Yeah, you could either get an exchange, which they quickly abandoned because it turned out that the PCI 4.0 slot was buggered on all of them, or you could get your money back. But what they also said is, if you don't want your money back immediately, we're going to be putting out the Z690i Ultra Plus, the plus being that your PCIe slot doesn't constantly trigger Windows blue screens. And so, I mean, I don't know how receptive I would have been to that, because I'm like, so I can wait for a working version, or you give me my money back and I buy one that works already. But then again, if you're looking for a tiny little motherboard, there weren't that many on the market. And so some people, I think, waited. Regardless, Tweaktown gave it a shot, and yeah, no worries. They fixed that problem. Everything you liked about it remained. It was just that the one little bug that constantly caused you to reboot all the time was gone. And if you look at the heat sinks on this thing, if you scroll down a bit, it's impressive.
Whoa. That's the gallery?
Yeah, they take you to benchmarks first.
Okay.
The armor, there you go.
Whoa,
Look
that's
at
big.
the thickness on that. But even still, it didn't do great overclocking. But then again,
that's
you're cooling.
like the heatsink over all the M.2 stuff.
Josh, that
Probably
looks like a
chipset.
daughter card. Looks like a daughter card.
Yeah.
Some
Chipset.
type up there.
You got a super
Yeah,
pipe over there.
If they put as much on the VRMs as they did on the M.2, I think this would be
Then yeah,
better
it might be
overclocker.
a little bit better.
So it's that's a 10 plus 1 plus 2 power phase on that board. There are 2 M.2 slots in that mezzanine just above the GPU slot.
Good word for it.
There's one very illogical thing with that, in my mind, is that entire piece, the daughter board there, removes with 2 server-style plugs. I'm not familiar with the port, but I know it's a server port used. But the bottom port, the bottom M.2 slot on that, is the one that's connected to the CPU. And it does not have the heat dissipation capabilities of the one that's on the top.
Okay.
That massive heatsink you see connects to the one that's on the top. And that's the one that goes through the chipset instead of to the CPU. So that seemed
It's
a little
very
backwards.
questionable
to me.
decision.
Yes. That being said, there's still quite a bit of heat dissipation available there. There's just not much, airflow over it. There's only, it's very odd. There's only one 4-pin PWM header directly on the motherboard, and then there are a lot of those mini PWM adapters, and it comes with the little dongle cables, which I don't quite understand that either. It doesn't seem like you're saving that much space, but I don't know. Maybe you are. But it's a hefty little motherboard. They actually replaced the old one with two versions. They have the Plus and the Ultra Light. The Ultra Light is PCI Gen 3 instead of 4. But it is also the least expensive Z690 board you can buy at $150.
It's ITX?
It's ITX.
Interesting.
Everything is identical to what you're seeing there, with the exception of its the GPU slot is PCI Gen 3. You can actually set it for Gen 4 or 5, but it crashes anytime you start running any
You want the same errors.
so like the original.
Okay.
Exactly. But I will tell you this. I'm streaming on one right now.
Oh, that's what you're using for the system? Okay.
Z690i? This is the board you have?
Yes. And it's just sitting external on a box right now.
As is.
It's well cooled.
Yes.
Pick it up and show it to us. Come on, nothing will happen.
Nothing bad will happen. Ken's fuzzy.
I'm liking that price tag, but I mean, if you're just planning on running stock, but then if you're running stock, why are you getting Z690? Why wouldn't you get like 660?
So level 1, well, first off, there's only a couple of C660 boards cheaper than this one. And they're very bare bones. But level 1, Wendell at level 1 did a big test showing why, if you're running Alder Lake, you're actually hurting yourself by running 660 or lower chipsets.
Is there a punchline to this? Okay.
No.
Because the reason is just because. Just trust Wendell. He knows what he's talking about.
I think part of it is RAM support, and RAM speeds that they will reach.
Okay.
I think that's one of the biggest things.
Yeah, but that's not handled by the chipset, so it's just is it an artificial limitation Intel put on the boards that have these chipsets?
More than likely.
Yeah.
It's time for the mandatory Intel Arc segment of our show. And this time we're not talking about desktop enthusiast graphics. We're talking about Arc Pro graphics. So you can get yourself professional graphics from Intel, a name you can trust in professional graphics, obviously.
You can tell it's professional because it's all mini DP.
And half height. Essential.
These cards were definitely not rendered.
We have the Arc Pro A40, Arc Pro A50, and Arc Pro graphics for laptops as well. And I'm going to skip ahead to the important part, at least from what I've seen so far. Talk about display support. That's fine. You can get that with a Matrox card. But down here, AV1, full AV1 hardware acceleration. So right now, they have the exclusive on this. They're an industry first. So you get 4.4 times, they claim, faster hardware encoding with Intel Arc graphics compared to software encoding. So if you're using Premiere Pro or DaVinci Resolve Studio and you want to render an AV1, this is the ticket to faster render times right now. So there's the market right there.
Well, good on them. I mean, they needed to have a product in that space.
A proven name you can trust. I like that phrase.
Yeah, but the problem is that a lot of these professional applications, they definitely need really good drivers.
Yes. Well, Josh, the drivers, I'm sure they're working diligently, and
yes,
they'll be rock solid across every application.
For the Pro.
And
Every hardware configuration.
But 10, 15 years from now, people are just still refusing to buy Intel graphics cards because they heard the drivers were bad back in the day.
It's true. But I don't think Intel's going to have graphics cards in 10 to 15 years either. So
Ooh.
nobody will. Think about it. What's the PC world going to look like in 15 years? It's going to be...
I don't know.
It will still be an insatiable need for compute. Bingo.
All right, let's move on to gaming quick hits. And Hard West 2 rides out, writes Jeremy Hellstrom. Please tell us more.
Yeah, I don't know if you played the first one. A lot of people absolutely despised it. I quite enjoyed it because there was a game mechanic they introduced, which was ricocheting bullets all over the map and hitting people in bizarre ways.
Nice.
It was a slow turn-based game. Like, you were doing a lot of cover, you were thinking your stuff out. And for this one, they said, you know what? There was a cover-based shooter that made a turn-based game that did really, really good. And Warhammer did it too. So if Gears Tactics and Warhammer can introduce a familiar a game mechanic where if you kill someone, you get all your move points back and just keep stringing together kills, this makes the game a lot more different. And it is. And they did something brilliant, which is, and I've only played the demo a couple of times. I haven't bought the game yet because I'm so far behind on the Steam library and the good old games library and the Epic library. Well, you know, that I haven't picked it up yet, but I did play the demo. And so in this Old West shooter, well, weird West shooter, they introduced Laughing Deer, who's armed with a club. And you're thinking, you know, you don't bring a club to a gunfight. The thing is, that club only uses one action point. Pistols use 2, rifles and shotguns use 3. And every time I kill someone, I get all my points back. So literally what you can do is use all your shooters to tag a whole bunch of them so that he can just then dance around the screen as a whirlwind of death, finishing all of them off. It makes it for a very different feeling game. The other nice thing about Hard West is that it's very weird. A lot of the levels are very different from each other, so if you end up with a part of the game that you hated, because in the first one there was like a mining part to it, it doesn't last long. The next one you play will be completely and totally different, but tied in. So if you like weird Cthulhu-esque, HP, Lovecrafty, tied in with some interesting turn-based games, it's a lot of fun. And the reviews are coming in as pretty good.
I was going to ask if it was like Disco Elysium weird.
But no, it's a little different. You don't end up just dying because someone rejected you for asking them out. Still haven't made it very far in that game. I just keep building guys that keep dying.
Speaking of quick hits, get your sci-fi fix. Humble Bumble style. $12. Battlestar Galactica, Per Aspria, Everspace, and Deep Space Battle Simulator are some of the ones that folks
I've never heard of before. I'm curious about that.
I've heard of a couple of those.
No, the Deep Space Battle Simulator I've never heard of.
Oh. Well, this looked like a heck of a deal on space sci-fi style games for $12. This is go check this out, probably pick it up. You could pay a little bit less. You could pay a little bit more if you like this sort of thing. Jeremy, what'd you think?
I own quite a few of them, but like I said, I'm kind of curious about the one that I have no idea what it is.
Deep Space Battle Simulator?
Yeah, I don't know. And I haven't played Everspace in so long I could almost play it again, maybe. Bet it still doesn't support joystick, though. Damn you, Everspace.
Anyway, heck of a deal for the folks who enjoy that sort of genre.
Oh, yeah. Netflix. They did get into games, apparently. I didn't know this.
Does anyone remember this?
No.
No.
Like TV games? Like the old cable box?
How did this work?
Streaming games or something?
It was mobile only.
Oh.
Well, I mean, imagine translating the fun you have trying to search by using the arrow key to pick single letters, like you're trying to get a high score, or you've just got the high score in an old arcade game, and translate that into gaming. Yeah, it's not going to work so well. But and apparently I even reported on this in November when they first launched it. And there are literally almost 2 million people that daily game on Netflix's mobile app. And honestly, like I was kind of weird.
What?
Like exploding kittens. They've got Into the Breach, and as you'd expect, a whole bunch of games based off of some of the shows that they have, which of course are going to be point and click crap.
Yeah.
But it's still a thing. They're trying to expand their lineup of games that you never knew you could play, let alone tried. So I mean, I guess if you're one of those people that streams Netflix on your mobile device, you can play Into the Breach instead.
Gaming's at your fingertips.
No, thank you.
Yeah, I just don't get it.
This is going to get cut.
The
99% of their subs don't use
haven't
it.
even tried it.
So, yeah, let's keep that infrastructure going.
Yeah.
Okay.
I had no idea that even existed. So
I posted about it and then promptly forgot, and it came as a surprise again.
So let's talk about quantum computing, the thing that everybody understands.
Well, don't you recognize that algorithm? It should be quite familiar to you if you understand quantum computing. I believe that's an abelian surface. Here's the funny thing. So quantum computing is going to make everything perfectly encrypted, unbreakable before the heat death of the universe. And so the America's NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, produced 4 new codes that they're calling key. Well, sorry, I have to do it because they're the super singular isogeny key encapsulation algorithms because it makes sense. Psych. But they're supposed to be unbreakable by a quantum computer. And someone had the bright idea of saying, before we put these as standards, maybe we should, sort of throw them out into the wild and see if anyone can crack them. And, offer them about 50 grand to see if they could. And so 2 insane Belgians, I'm just assuming because what they did was take a Xeon E5 2630 V2, disable every single core except one, and run it at 2.6 gigahertz, and then try to see if they could do it. Which they did in less than an hour. So this algorithm that is supposedly unbreakable by a quantum computer was destroyed by an Ivy bridge in under an hour. They checked out another one, and they could do that one. It was just a little bit over an hour to do. So there's 3 other encryption standards which are still unbroken as far as I know at this point. But the whole idea of this is encryption that should be undefeatable by anything that a quantum computer, short of the heat death of the universe, where the processing power was beaten by a single core on an Ivy bridge, kind of makes me question the entire theory of, or their understanding of quantum computing to begin with, and their theory of what they're doing for this key encapsulation. Because that's just nuts.
Well, if they'd leveraged the power of the blockchain, then they wouldn't have had to worry about security, would they?
No, obviously not. So yeah, this is... It is amusing, and it's quantum because everything is quantum, and the second that you say quantum, then everything is magical and perfect, and just throw money at it because it's amazing.
1997. Oh, you've got a website?
Yeah.
Let me give you some money.
I thought the phrase was blockchain.
I mean, Jeremy, I'm sorry, Jeremy. I think you're missing the entire point of this story. The point of this story should be that Ivy Bridge is the greatest processing node ever made.
There's a reason they went back. I mean, the single-threaded power of Ivy Bridge is no joke.
Unstoppable.
And hey, I mean, as a security researcher, I can understand running just a single core because, I mean, we know what branch prediction and multi-threading leads to. But yeah, that's just bizarre.
Yeah, I think the biggest problem with quantum is and maybe I'm wrong here, probably, but
you might be right. I don't think
the software side has caught up yet, because if you think about how quantum computing works, that essentially, it figures out all, well, in theory, all you have multiple states at one time, but getting that, translated from a quantum compute to our regular on-off, 0, 1, You'd think that there would be something missing in the translation. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah. Don't you remember your school teacher telling you to show your work as opposed to just immediately writing down the answer?
Yeah.
Quantum feels a little bit like that, and that it's just sort of skipped over all the work. It gives you an answer that you damn well hope is right.
Are you ready to hear about a critical authentication bypass vulnerability with a 9.8 out of 10 on the CVSS severity scale?
No.
I missed this with Brett. Thanks for that.
VMware patches critical make me admin auth bypass bug and 9 other flaws.
Yeah, you can ignore those 9 other flaws. I really
They're
think
not nines.
I think the headliner at 9.8 is really the story here. They're so close to a 10, maybe next time. But VMware is saying that if you have access to the network access, which means the attacker can be remote anywhere on the planet, access to their UI, they may be able to obtain administrative access without any of that pesky authentication required. This is extremely severe. If anybody out there is running VMware with their UI accessible, either cut that out, cut that UI off.
No one runs VMware.
Well, yeah, nobody runs
Okay,
VMware.
I want to know the person who runs their VMware that's accessible from the web.
Well,
There
an
are-
internal bad actor as well.
I mean,
but,
especially
no,
the base.
true.
Let me publish my vCenter to the web.
Yeah. Do you remember the people that were up in arms about server, 2018, installing default without a GUI? There were sysadmins like foaming at the mouth. Like, but just don't do that. That's a bad idea. It's convenient, but dumb.
So the final dumb thing is the guy who found this is about to release a proof of concept exploit to the wild. So for God's sakes, if you're running this thing, get it patched immediately. This is, as close to a 10 as they're willing to give 9.8 out of 10. They got to leave a little room at the top. Yep. It's just like the Olympics. Leave a little room at the top.
Let's move to Kent's upgrade blog post number 3. As he continues the saga of upgrading in mid-2022 using components that makes everybody excited. I mean, who doesn't want to hear about 12th gen Intel on a Z690 board? But he's made it interesting. Last week we talked about the Gigabyte Aorus Master motherboard. And now it's time to look at some more components, Kent.
Revenge of the Kent? Explain.
I made that up. I didn't have a proper subtitle, so I'm like, it's episode 3. And he used a Star Wars reference. Storage, may the Gen 4s be with you.
Nice.
So I thought, Revenge of the... And I couldn't think of a pun that rhymed with Sith. So I just went with Revenge.
Or you couldn't talk about the chorus of Kent.
Steichen says Revenge of the Kent and Return of the Kent all the time in the Discord chat. So anyway.
That worked. Now, Revenge of the Kent could be a reference to the original title of Revenge of the Jedi, which became Return of the Jedi, which was shot under the name of Blue Harvest. Horror beyond imagination.
It's completely off the subject, but there was a movie theater in the city I live in. It's out of business now, but they had been here. They were the main movie theater in this city for many years. And the owner had a Revenge of the Jedi poster in his office.
Nice.
Nice.
I do not know how much money he turned down for that poster, but it was in a locked frame, but you could see it from the lobby. But yeah, he when that place closed down, it left with him, and but you just reminded me of that. So
they
like I said,
would already
off the subject, but a cool story.
Yeah, they printed the posters. It was the official title of the movie. I don't know why George decided at the last minute. Maybe it was the studio said, we can't have that. That's too negative.
It was George.
It was George.
It was
Jedi. Do they take revenge?
Yeah.
Well, do they return?
They have to reshoots. Call Hamill back. He's going to return now. He can't get revenge anymore.
When he's 72, yes, he is reshooting. He is returned in Mandalorian and Boba Fett.
You know, if George,
Wait, I have lines on this one?
if George still owned Star Wars, do you think he would be remaking the Star Wars movies? Seems
Probably
to be a
not.
trendy thing to do.
I
Everything gets
think
remade.
at least we would not have been subjected to the final 3 trilogy.
Yeah.
That's true.
Well, he'd written a story.
he had-
they threw his story
he had
out and went
different-
with their own.
That's right.
There's some great stuff in the TV series. My wife and I finished the Clone Wars series, and that's
that was-
fantastic.
Yes.
That's
That really
fantastic.
brings out the space slavery and the rebellion.
Mm-hmm.
Because,
And Mandalorian is fantastic. Boba Fett had some weak points, but also some real strong moments in it. And freaking Obi-Wan Kenobi was, forgive the language, but goddamn awesome.
crap, I
And,
forgot to finish that.
There were scenes in it that I'm like, if Ewan McGregor does not get nominated for an Emmy for this, something's wrong.
But they won't.
Anyway.
They don't have any respect for sci-fi.
They don't do that, of
They
course,
don't,
but
fantasy
like
stuff.
I said, something's wrong.
Right. Prejudice.
So anyway, back to the upgrade. I guess the first thing to talk about was my choice of going with DDR5. And I mentioned in the article that if the failure of my previous system had occurred probably 2 or 3 months earlier, I probably would have stuck with DDR4 because at that time DDR5 was still exorbitantly expensive, and I really felt like the kits were immature. We were seeing really bad timings and really low speed for DDR5. But when my failure happened, the prices had started coming down and some much better kits had been starting to come out. This Trident Z5 kit from G-Skill that I bought was at the time the fastest and lowest latency kit you could get at 6432. And I just, like I mentioned in the article, through just a fortune of coupon codes and best Newegg daily deals, not only was the silver kit cheaper than the exact same black kit, but it was slightly cheaper than the 6000 cast latency 30 kit of the exact same brand and style. So there was just no reason to go with the slower. I mentioned last week when I was on that I was concerned that kit was not on the QVL list, but XMP recognized it. It booted right up to the correct speeds and timings. And I've not had a single problem from that RAM since. The only times I've had any blue screens or instability is through trials of overclocking. Other than that, the whole system's been rock solid. The next, as I had been on 9th gen, I was still using a Gen 3 Samsung, I believe it was a 970 Pro, a 970 Evo. It was a 970 Evo Gen 3 SSD. So since I was moving to the capability of using 4th gen, I decided it would be a good time to do so. And again,
So that's what the cover art is now. It's on the RAM.
It's on the RAM. Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, look at that.
The waifus are on the RAM, and you can take that how you want.
That's SSD. Come on.
So
It's solid state.
Yeah. NAND isn't RAM. Josh is right.
It's true, but
Fine, it's persistent.
it's
Like
on
Josh.
it's on the SSD. So
Yeah.
again, I was planning on just getting a couple of 2 terabyte sticks of this kit, but there was a sale going on the 4 terabyte, and it was only I'm literally less than $10 more expensive than getting the 2 sticks of 2 terabyte. And so I just took the extra step, got the 4 terabyte. So the entire 4 terabyte storage is going directly through the CPU link. So I've actually been kind of amazed at certain things. Before, I was running my games drive off of through the chipset, and it was, of course, it was Gen 3 through the chipset as well. But like the way Cyberpunk runs, there's no sort of loading areas. It sort of preloads, but I could see like when I would hit a new area, there would be just a slight judder in the game for a moment. And now I see the icon come up in the game where I've loaded a new area, and I do not feel it in game at all. It's just rock solid smooth through those loads in the game. So I'm really happy with going Gen 4, like I say, straight through the CPU link. And then lastly, my the last 2 purchases were sort of smaller purchases, but they both dealt with keeping the 12900KS cool and secure. I've used that quantum velocity block previously in the Lan Li review and the custom loop I did in it. And I was very impressed with that block, not only with how it looks, because it just looks fantastic. It looks like a full mono block, but it's just the CPU block. But it cools very well. There's a lot of heat mass in it. But also the mounting system for it is just fantastic. It's a little difficult to work with, but it is absolutely great for just making sure you've got even pressure all the way across the IHS. The other thing that I did was sort of to combat the problems that we've been hearing about first off the Intel clamping system having some uneven pressure on the 12th gen processors, causing coolers to sit uneven, and also some people reporting the PCBs actually bending because all that pressure is being exerted sort of right in the center on the 2 outer tabs. I can't remember who it was. Was it Lab? What's the guy's name that does the lab?
Igor.
Thank you. Igor's lab and Der Bauer and a few others have reported about the bending PCs and the uneven pressure. And Der Bauer, who is part owner of Thermal Grizzly, came up with this mounting plate that goes around the CPU, replaces your stock clamping mechanism, and ensures that it sits under even pressure all the way around, but also you get a flat mounting surface for your heatsink. I was not able to get the Der Bauer Thermal Grizzly model at the time I purchased this. It was not available in the US yet. So I purchased the Thermal Right version, which they've got a very good reputation, and I'm very happy with the quality of the piece. They are a little finicky to mount. You really need to, actually, I recommend watching Der Bauer's video and Gamers Nexus video about how to install these correctly before, and actually trying it a couple of times before you actually finalize putting the thermal paste and the cooler on it. I actually did a couple of tests, one with just the stock mounting plate and one with that mounting plate, and I could tell that I was actually getting a much more even paste distribution with using that mount. but you can't over tighten it. If you over tighten it, you risk, either missing channels of RAM or not posting, or even possibly damaging the motherboard if you decide to go crazy and crank down on it too hard. So it's not something I really recommend for most people. But if you're comfortable with that, then yeah, I think it's worthwhile, especially just for a little peace of mind, so that I'm not worrying about, if the stock clamp is starting to bend my PCB. So those were the two additional pieces, and I'm very happy with everything I've done with this system. And I'll be presenting some performance numbers, both stock with just an AIO, and then overclocked in my custom loop. And I presented a picture of the final build at the end. And I'll also be going through a couple of the steps I did just to sort of debloat and optimize Windows 11. Because it's terrible.
By the way, what case is this? Fantex Enthu?
It's the 719. It was originally called the Lux 2.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
I think I looked at one of these a few years ago.
That was the one we reviewed. I did the review on it, and it has been my case since then. I had looked at maybe going with the Lee & Lee 011 Mini, one like I just built in, because I really liked that case. But I just didn't feel like it had quite enough cooling capacity to handle a 3090 and a 12900 KS. So I stuck with the Enthu 719. And it's been a great case.
Well, thank you for that. And
Thank you.
Next week, even more. The system will be all together. In fact, I'm looking at the video feed here. It looks like you have that system behind you right now, don't you?
Yes.
The one to his right, his left, your right, if you're watching the video. See that blue system back there with the hardline tubing. Show off.
You're going to have such buyer's remorse when next month rolls around.
Possibly.
Oh, definitely.
On which part specifically?
Every
Josh?
part. He's going to want a new PSU, new GPU, new CPU, new motherboard.
Oh,
Maybe
it'll
he'll be
all
okay
be
with the
so
RAM.
last gen. So last gen.
The RAM will be okay, and the storage is fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, the power supply won't be.
No. I had a little snarky note in his review.
How big is this PS? How big is your PSU, Kent? How big?
It's a 1,000 watt EVGA G+.
Sorry, that's not good enough.
Yeah.
A pittance.
But I was actually gaming in this office 2 nights ago, and just it got so ridiculously hot in here. Now, I had forgotten that I had
You're
been
sure you were just
testing.
gaming, Kent?
I had been testing overclock stability on the 3090, so I had it running on the 500 watt BIOS at the time, and running 135 plus on the GPU, and 1250 plus on the VRAM, and this office got so goddamn hot. And then afterward, I'm like, okay, I really don't want a 600 watt GPU. Not if I'm going to be gaming for an hour or 2 hours at a time.
People will learn. People will learn about. They can't ignore the wattage usage of their components.
I'm sorry. Have you seen the weather lately? People will learn.
Yeah.
People will learn. Well, okay.
It's going to be game-free summers for a lot of people.
Let's move to picks of the week. It's
Thank
everybody's
you.
favorite segment because it's the last one. Josh?
That's hot in here. I'm starting to glisten. All right.
Nobody wants to see Josh glisten.
Nobody.
That's not true.
So anyway, Crucial released the P3 Plus PCI 4.0 units, SSDs, NVMe SSDs, that is, and 4 terabytes for $329. How does that sound? And it's pretty fast, too. I mean, it's like, 5 gigabytes per second reads and 4.3 gigabyte per second writes. I mean, it's not slow. It's like a first generation PCI 4.0, but it's $324. Yeah.
4 terabytes for that of Gen 4. That's pretty damn good.
Wow.
Yeah, so it'll be showing up in 2 more days. It's high demand.
One.
No kidding.
Yeah.
They're out of them, apparently.
Yes.
Back order here.
Yeah. ETA 812.
So by the time you see or hear this finished version of the podcast, you may be able to sneak on over to Newegg and grab yourself the only
Or
4
to the
terabyte
Crucial site.
SSD that follows Ryan's law.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Less than 10 cents a gig. Because 10 cents a gig would be $400.
Mm-hmm.
We're well past that. Isn't it a beautiful thing?
Now, is this 10 cents a gigabyte? Because if you compare gigabyte to gigabyte and then formatted capacity versus...
Okay, I'm gonna go and slap you. I'm gonna get an
All right.
airline
I mean,
ticket.
what I'm saying is that this price is low enough. I think it's truly 10 cents a gigabyte and not just 10 cents a gigabyte of unformatted capacity. That's all. That's all I'm saying.
That's it.
Mm-hmm. All right. Who's next? Jeremy, what is your pick this week?
It's finally arrived. MSI is the first one to actually announce a fully PCIe 5.0 ATX 3.0 compliant PCU, the Meg AI 1300P, which is capable of delivering up to 600 watts of power over its 12 plus 4-pin PCIe 5.0 connector. It was coming. You knew it was coming. You had to buy the adapters before. You finally can get the PSU that can do it for you without needing an adapter.
Overflow with power, it says.
Oh, you are
Market.
overflowing with power. Like 1,300 watt total, 600 watt on just a PCIe lane.
How much?
Well, I mean, it's been announced. It should be out very soon.
They didn't announce pricing, is what you're saying.
It's going to if you have to ask. Well, you couldn't afford the
I just want to know how much people are going to have to tack on to that new GPU if they want the compliant.
Guessing at least
For the first couple of months? Yeah, it's going to be expensive.
Yeah.
Will Newegg bundle it?
The only one that's been announced. No one else has actually announced one yet. So,
Cooler Master has announced 2 SFX that have the 16 pin.
Really?
But and they're like 1,100 and 1,300 watt SFX power supplies.
do they call them
1,300 watts?
Yes.
Wow.
It's crazy.
Dense.
Very
Not
dense.
even SFXL?
They
This
might
has to be L,
Ls.
right?
I would think
Got to
so.
be
And this
don't
was, I
know.
remember seeing this like,
Okay.
I found this when I was looking for power supply
heck is
options
happening?
on that Leon Lee
Okay.
build.
Look at the graphic here. When I go to there.
Oh.
8-bit.
That's original Duke Nukem.
Okay, so this is a render, apparently. I don't know if this is a real thing.
Wait, it's sex form factor?
It says it is. No, wait a minute. It's V. Wait. Hold on.
What is a VSFX?
That's the V series.
It's
Oh my
very
gosh.
SFX.
Very SFX. Okay.
But no, look at the connectors. That is an SFX.
Yeah.
That's not long.
Okay.
And there's the
No, no.
PCIe Gen 5 down on the bottom right.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Is
Is
a
this-
fire hazard.
Is this ATX 3
The
compatible
Cooler
as
Master.
well?
SFX Fire Hazard.
Okay.
Now they announced those like 2 months ago. Like I said, I saw mention of them when I was looking for power supply options on the Lee and Lee Dynamic Mini, but they were not giving prices or availability at that point. But yeah, so those were the first of the Gen 5s I saw. But yeah, it's crazy.
That kind of power density is ridiculous. I thought 1,000 watts was going to be the limit for SFX, but what do I know?
We used to make fun of 1,000-watt. No, yeah.
That's the minimum
Where we
requirement for a gaming PC. 850s are passe. Brett, what is your pick?
Well, clearly I was out shopping for a Christmas gift for you, Sebastian, when I ran across this excruciatingly sweet deal on a capture card from EVGA, the XR1 Lite. Apparently Amazon is pushing this out at roughly half off. Not a bad capture card. I know you have one very similar to this.
Yeah, the non-light is the one that they sent.
The
over.
non-light. Right. The non-light one isn't. Yeah, but this is a very serviceable one. And the only difference really is this doesn't have the external control and the LED lighting and stuff on it. It's very similar in performance specs. I believe it is anyways.
Yeah.
It looks very capable at 1080p 60, and you can pass through 4K on it at 60 as well. Very low latency. For $50, this is a really sweet deal, in my opinion, for a capture card.
No,
You've
I
had
don't
good
think
luck
you're
with yours.
I don't think you're going to do better than $50. Now, Kent, is this the one that you destroyed on stream, or?
No, I still have that one.
Oh, okay. I thought it was in.
I did have
multiple
trouble
pieces.
with it, but we've sort of narrowed those problems down to not the capture card.
Yeah, just like I was talking about last week with the whole like USB hub sharing and power management stuff in Windows and all this other nonsense. You have to tweak and
Yeah, I do
configure.
plan on going back to using my A6000 and that capture card for these streams eventually, but I want to make sure I've got a system that's set up for it and iron out all the issues prior to being live.
Okay, yeah, it's
against tradition, but all right.
it's less exciting that way. All right, people would get the false impression that we were more professional then, so maybe don't do that. All right,
That's not happening.
Kent, your pick this week.
I actually had a different pick selected, and then I opened my email and saw that EK Waterblocks is having a sale right now on a lot of stuff. And they've got some really unbelievable prices on some of these things. They have the EK Vardar fans at really amazing markdowns. All the versions of them. The non-addressable RGB version of the Vardar Evo, they have it's like $5.40 a piece.
Oh, nice. That's 80% off.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah. It's crazy. They've got some water blocks for 30 series and for various CPUs as well, at great prices. I actually had a card that I've wanted to water cool to put a block on just for doing loops in some of my reviews. And I picked up a block for basically around half price today. So for that GPU. So yeah, I just saw the pricing on a lot of those things and thought, man, somebody right now needs fans or needs a new water block for their CPU or something on here that's ridiculously low priced. Those RGB Vardars at $5.40. My God, buy 20 of them and just be good for a while. They're not addressable, but so what? They actually have the white version that is addressable for $8.40. So, yeah.
And then look at this. Well, this one sold out the Velocity DRGB AMD block, $34.80. But you can still get the black color of it for
the acetal. Yeah,
$30.
It's not the full nickel, but the acetal for $33.
I mean, $33 if you're just kind of
for a really good quality block. That's
regular $110.99.
Yeah.
Oh, those are huge sales.
This is ridiculous.
Yes.
Well, it's almost like there's a new generation of products coming out.
But shouldn't the AM4 blocks fit the AM5?
I wonder
AMD
about that because the new CPU, does it retain the same Z height as the old one? I don't remember what DeBauer said.
It's
more,
more,
I can't remember.
Yeah. Can it handle the thermal load? Or do they need to be a little bit beefier?
Well, I mean, technically, that is the only difference between the on most of the EK, like the quantum blocks, like those. The only difference between the Intel and the AMD models is the bracket that actually mounts it down. It's the same block and internals. So, yeah, I mean, if it can handle, 200 plus watts from a 9900K or 300 from my 12900KS. So
it's a good question.
Now, granted, I'm using that monster block, the Quantum Velocity 2 that I showed earlier on the KS, but still, I see people using the smaller blocks on the Ks, the 12900Ks, with no problem. So,
real quick, my pick this week, something I recently picked up from Amazon. It's a camp bed. This is kind of a weird pick, but I had a need for one of these things.
Was it comfortable?
It actually is not bad. And here's the thing.
Really?
A lot of these you have to build. You have to kind of assemble like a tent. I was looking at some lightweight ones where they have little poles and things you have to snake through. This thing looks like a regular camp chair. Pull it out of the sleeve. You unfold it into a bed instead of a chair. And it's stable. It supposedly holds up to 450 pounds. And reasonably comfortable. The top has an incline, so if you kind of have a sort of a pillow, and seems to be pretty darn strong. It was about $62 when I bought it. It's currently $68.99.
How much does it weigh?
It's not very heavy. I don't know what the actual weight is.
15 pounds.
Oh, okay. Is that what it said in the graphic I just closed?
So the graphic was like 14 points.
So it's 15 pounds in answer to your question. Okay. It has these pockets on the sides, on both sides, actually, to put your phone and crap into. So there you go. Well, on that note, let's say goodbye. Thank you for watching, listening, consuming the podcast that we've painstakingly crafted for you, just for you. Whoever you are, it was with you in mind that we picked the subject matter of tonight's show. We want to thank you for inspiring us. You are our muse, whoever you might be. And we'll see you next week.
So visit us at Zombocom.
Visit us at one of the many porn venues that has been spamming our live show.